Excellent. So I'm here to talk to you about our platform, Smart Spaces OS, which is a smart building operating system deployed across 100 million square feet in 30 countries. We deployed the platform originally working with Marriott Hotels, where we built their European booking system. Whilst creating the booking system for Marriott, they had aspirations for smart within their conferencing. We started to utilise technologies like iBeacon to load passes onto people's phones when they entered the space. We quickly realised and noticed that offices were starting to become a lot like hotels with a similar amount of amenity. And back in 2015, we deployed our first smart campus for Columbia Threadneedle in the UK. This wrapped up all of the amenity that the business park offered and was there to attract tenants out of city centre locations out to these campuses. Once we deployed the platform, we had a huge amount of success with not just the other landlords that were looking to deploy similar solutions, but with the tenants of the building. And today our business grows equally as fast in enterprise as it does in real estate. And I'm very proud to have Canada Life here as a client, and Palo Alto, which we're deployed in over 56 locations globally. We also work for the flex operators too, who offer flexible space within their buildings for smaller businesses. Here's some of our projects. There's quite a few tall buildings there. Obviously, the neighbours to Edge London, the Shard, which is a building we're really proud to have worked on. And I think the key thing with these projects, the things that they all have in common, is that level of amenity they're looking to provide. 22 Bishopsgate is known as the vertical village. It has a in-house restaurant. It has a Gordon Ramsay restaurant as well. It has 1,700 cycle spaces. It has a flexible office, which is there as a cost-saving option for those that wouldn't be able to afford the traditional space. And it has a viewing gallery which is open to the public. Now, this amenity is deployed for our Smart Spaces app. That app in that location has 30,000 active users, and it was the first building in Europe to have Apple Wallet access, so you can use your wallet card to access the building. That wallet card is also used to access the amenities like the cycle amenity and the offices of the tenants within the building. Heinz European HQ, which is not a tall building, but it's possibly one of the most beautiful workspaces we've ever been involved with. If we could ever move our Smart Spaces HQ, that would be the building we would choose to relocate to. So our functionality suite, one of our biggest differentiators is that we connect to the fabric of the building. So all of the sensors we've just seen in the previous presentation that have deployed across the building, we bring back to our central location. So your lift data, your lighting data, the locker utilisation, everything you can see on this wheel comes back into our platform, and then we can provide those services back to the end user. So we can facilitate access to lockers. With the lifts, we can do destination control, so when you badge in, we'll call the lift for you. And we actually have a really cool feature which will put identify the lift that you need to take and send it to your app as a push notification. Because I don't know if anyone goes to a building and they're talking to a colleague and they press the button and it says go to lift C, and then 2 seconds later they forget and they press it again. But there's also a carbon saving and cost saving there, because we're taking those control panels that sit outside the lifts and we're bringing them into the app. We're using the app screen as the control panel. In a building as tall as 22 Bishopsgate, and you're looking at these panels can be around £15,000 each, you can save well into £2 million straight away by moving that destination control panel from a touch screen to the app. And we still have the lift buttons there too, because my wife is equally as frustrated that I took all the light switches out of our house and deployed our app to control everything. We always have that fallback. But one thing I want to get across in this presentation is, even with our data warehouse and storing this data across all of the assets that we showed you, it's around 105 million square feet in 30 countries. When it comes to presenting the data back to users, and the great thing is we have so much correlation here. You know, you can look at your occupancy versus your catering demand. You can look at your energy versus your occupancy. You can continually optimize the building. Have you got too many lockers? Have you got too little lockers? Do you need to have more cycle spaces? It becomes a huge amount of time to actually start creating these reports. And we would spend hours and hours creating these reports for customers. And the one thing that always blew our minds was we would have a report template, and the next client would reject it. They'd say, no, that template doesn't work for us. We don't do things that way. This is a case study on a building we just launched in Boston, which is a tall building. I think it's 2 million square feet. It's the tallest building currently in Boston, International Place. And it's the leasing director of that building explaining what we've done by deploying our platform.
I'm Ryan Barrett. I work with the Shafaro company and I handle the leasing efforts here at International Place. International Place is comprised of 2 high-rise towers, and together they stand as a prominent piece of the Boston skyline. Over the last 18 months or so, we've been underway on a $100 million renovation that's really revolving around modernizing the building, amenitizing the building. We're currently constructing a 25,000 square foot amenity space that's exclusively for our tenants, that really covers the full gamut from various conference rooms, podcast rooms, golf simulators, full service bar, just a testament to our commitment to the overall tenant experience. Smart Spaces is a very user-friendly and all-encompassing platform that just makes the tenant experience a lot more seamless. Looking at our tenant roster at International Place, there are a lot of successful attorneys, a lot of successful professionals that are in financial services, and they're incredibly busy throughout the day. In order to streamline property management related or building related questions that they may have, they can just easily access it through the Smart Spaces application. It's a lot of feedback that we've been getting from our tenants and the brokerage community as well. Smart Spaces has a great reputation, and whenever I'm touring prospective tenants, they're definitely excited to hear about the implementation of Smart Spaces and coming to International Place. Post-COVID, when a lot of landlords are kind of taking a step back and waiting for the dust to settle, in classic Shafaro company fashion, we're being bullish, moving forward and investing a large amount of capital in not only the building, but also the future of Boston. Since COVID and just the ambiguity of the office market, right, hybrid and fully remote models that a lot of companies have been implementing, that's definitely made it a lot more challenging, a lot more competitive. You're not just going to work at a workstation for 8 to 10 hours a day. We need to provide various amenities like a golf simulator and F1, driving cars and full service bars and roof decks that are exclusive for tenants. That's been the game changer. And brokers and prospective tenants have been very transparent. They want to see these amenities. They also want more food options and upscale retail. And I think just having a building application just makes the overall tenant experience more fulfilling. Going into the office these days, you need a little bit more of an experience, rather than just sitting at your desk all day.
I think the key I want to get across there is that's a retrofit of a development, whereas the big misconception with what we do is that you can only put it in the greatest, shiniest new buildings. The majority of our portfolio globally is actually retrofit by the nature that most of the buildings have already been developed. So I've posed that problem on the previous slide around the data that we collect. And what we're finding is that by utilising agents within our platform, they can actually make use of the data and become a new member of staff for our clients to help them save energy in their building. We place the data within our smartphone app and we give real-time access. And we mentioned, a 5-star neighbours building on the previous presentation. A lot of our buildings are neighbours 5-star. The problem is it's down to the tenant's behaviour. They can easily wreck that rating within their first year of occupation. And so what we do, we give a real-time feedback on the energy consumption and show them exactly what is happening in their building. Again, keep referencing Edge London, but they have the interstitial blinds. A lot of our buildings have that blind technology within them. and they're fantastic, but you're also in a tall building. And the reason you lease a tall building is because you want a fantastic view. And what we find is a lot of users will override the blinds, and this has a real dramatic energy consumption factor. We found that 2 floors, so I think it was floor 22 and floor 23 in one of our buildings, one tenant would override the blinds at 9 o'clock in the morning for 4 hours and then override them at lunchtime. So you had the full 8 hours of the view unobstructed. They had twice the HVAC energy consumption as their nearest neighbour. And the only way we got them to change their behaviour is to show them what they were paying for energy versus the floor above or floor below. So much so that now in our Smart Spaces app, when you override the blinds, we show you exactly how much that is going to cost you in terms of energy. So you have an informed decision before you decide to show the view. And we think, sometimes you've got that big pitch, you've hired that office, if you do it for an hour or so, it's perfect. But yeah, you don't do it for 8 hours a day. And so our AI will scrape all of the data. We also ingest a lot of the data in the construction phase. So we'll take the O&M manuals and bring those into our platform, not just the live operation data from the platform. We then have the ability to create rules. And these rules, which are called monitors and actions, are the way we monitor data points and then take action in the building. This can be looking at the CO2 levels and increasing the fresh air. Interesting, in our latest implementation, we've stopped using the CO2 to drive the fresh air. We've been using the occupancy because we found when the CO2 got too high, by the time we brought the fresh air into the space, the tenants were leaving the building or the meeting was finished. So now we use occupancy. As soon as we see a high number of people arrive, or sometimes we'll take the booking data and see what you're perceived to have, especially in conference suites. You can feel the heat in here right now. We will bring the fresh air in ahead of time and then ramp it down towards the end of the meeting. And then once we have the data sets over time, we can predict. And we're already in a lot of our buildings predicting like the requirements for catering based on our data that we have within our platform. We're now starting to see a lot of these automation tasks. And I think what's great is that our platform will suggest a change before you implement it. So you're not just letting it run wild and start adapting on its own. You can choose whether you want to go ahead with a rule or you don't want to go ahead with it. Oh, that's my smart bottle beeping at me. It's time to drink. Now, one of the really interesting things around the cycle amenity is that the London planning is around 20% of the building, and we're finding across our portfolio that it's never going past 50% occupation. So that's 50% of the space that you're wasting within the building. What we did is that we looked at technology to track the bikes within the building. And we found that video technology would work quite well for that, but we wouldn't be able to identify without having a GDPR issue around whose bike that is. So we built a tagging technology where we applied tags to the bikes using RFID, and then we'd be able to identify how long the bikes had been there. And actually in one of the buildings in London, one of the tall towers, we had bikes that had not been used for 2 years, and we found that a lot of the tenants were using the bike park as their own garage. JLL, funny enough, who run that building, decided to contact all the tenants to say, right, we're going to auction the bikes if you don't come and collect them. And one of the bikes that went to auction was a Cannondale fully carbon £25,000. So, what's that, dollars, $30,000 bike? Some of the lucky staff at JLL are now riding around on this bike. It's crazy they left it. And this is the active commuter park. At 22 Bishopsgate. So you'll see on the left-hand side, similar to a car park, we show you exactly how many spaces there are. We show you where your bike is, because your bike's tagged. Once your bike enters that park, we show you where it's located. So if you come down later, you're not looking for your bike in the park. But this will then give us the exact dwell time of how long that bike stays there. We found actually, quite interestingly, the lockers was the worst one, where when the building was first developed, it had 1,700 keys handed over. So Multiplex gave JLL 1,700 keys. Someone lost the master key within the first 6 months, but that wasn't the biggest problem. The tenants just kept taking the keys home with them. And so they ran out of lockers within like months of operation. So we replaced the lockers with a digilock. And that digilock will unlock itself within 2 weeks if you don't go back to use it, so you'll lose your gym kit. We send you lots of push notifications to remind you. But flipping that around, if you use that locker more than 4 times a week, it's your permanent locker, and you can actually go and select one of the lockers and say, I quite like the one in the corner. Got 5 minutes on here? Cool, perfect. Great. And so we're doing all these things in the building, and we're looking at the data and what our clients are doing, and they're going into our report dashboard every month and exporting these huge reports, and we thought we could really make their lives easier. So that conversational control has been a great delight for the building managers, that when they go to present to the asset manager, all the questions they typically have to go off and create a report for in the palm of their hands, they can literally sit in the meeting. They might look quite rude, they're using their phone, but they'll say, oh, you know, exactly how many people did we have last month, how many visitors? You can just ask the questions and they'll come straight back to you. And it's really made that data set on the wheel that I had at the beginning of the presentation far more accessible than it was previously. We also have the visualization, so we'll take the BIM model, so Pilbara and Partners can give us the BIM model, we'll load that into our software, and then in use we use it to identify you and show you where issues are. So if you have a complaint around a temperature, it will zone into the nearest fan coil unit and give you that live operational status. So it's really making use of something that typically goes in a USB stick or in a cloud storage once the building's operational and never seen again. We have the proactive alert, so the app will give you a push notification if something happens. We have the agentic layer, which means it will run tasks for you in the background. We have the real-time reporting, which is one of the most powerful features in the platform. We have the service requests. Best thing about the service request is it will auto-respond if it has a knowledge base article around that issue. So rather than create a ticket and bog down staff with a generic answer, it will look for the answer that we have from a previous query and respond. And then the best thing is it's in the palm of your hands within our app. We also help build the community. One of the key things of the app, because it's your access pass to the building, we get 100% of the users within the building using the platform. So if you're one of the new members of staff, you can connect into a community straight away. And a lot of our landlords now have decided to take away the plastic cards in their entirety, so you can't even get a plastic card if you request one. Desk booking, the best thing about this is it can automate it based on your, say, your boss booking their desk. It will book your desk once they book their desk, so you're always there. We have seen someone reverse it and not book a desk on the days a particular person comes in, so it can be used in reverse as well. The same for the meeting rooms as well. One of the best features in the meeting rooms is if we see everyone join the Teams link, it cancels the room booking. So you don't have an empty room. And that happens so often that there's just rooms sitting there where everyone's decided, actually, I'm going to do this virtually rather than attend in person. And the best thing is it taps into all of these elements. And one thing I want to get across today is that we write the software, we don't create the hardware. So all of those spokes on the wheel are thousands of manufacturers around the world. So we have Schneider Electric BMS, Siemens BMS, Distech Controls, which is a great Canadian BMS system that we interface with. There's thousands and thousands of systems, and we have a full-time team of developers that onboard these drivers for these hardware all the time. And it's even accelerated where we now use AI to write that code to interface the new systems. So time's up, I'm done. Thank you. One of the things that we've seen on the leasing front, which will be very powerful for the edge, is that if you bring in the building data, so you see that energy screen we had up there, if you show that in reception, we've found that like the leasing in those buildings, like the JJ Mack building, have set like the highest rents in London. And what we've worked out from talking to the tenants once they move in, because we then build the apps for the tenants, we said, look, why did you choose this building? And they said, look, we're a law firm, we're not going to save the planet ourselves, but if we can show that we're working in a building that's as sustainable as possible, it really aligns to the new talent that we're trying to bring into the business. And when they're waiting in reception for their job interview, and they can see the graphic saying this building's a BREEAM excellent and this is the current operating standard, it puts them ahead, and that really attracts them to the building.
Security-wise, is it more secure, less secure? Depends. What are you finding?
Yeah, good, can answer that. So. Yeah, no, it's certainly more secure, and I'll tell you the reason why. It's because you're now having a layer of visibility. So once we start monitoring the systems within the building, we can see the security status of the network. And I'll give you a case study on that. We were employed to look at retrofit a building, fantastic building. I won't name and shame the building, but we went there, and what we do is an analysis of all the systems you have and what the art of the possible is. So we go around and survey, and it's really geeky. We're in risers looking at the BMS controllers, we're looking at access control readers, we're looking at the CCTV. Everything is assessed, and we then assess the network and the network security. And I said to the landlord, I said, look, this building is so insecure, I can show you something that's going to be really alarming. And I detached a Cat6 cable from the camera on the outside of the building, and I plugged my laptop in, I used a backnet scanning tool, and I shut the chillers off. And I was like, if I could put those chillers into full surge, it'll probably give you a power cut, or knock the power out. That will then unlock the maglock on the front of the door, and I've got into the building. And so that's how dangerous a lot of these buildings are. And I think previously, when they've been procured, they've used siloed partners to deliver things. So you have someone do access control, someone do lighting control, and the network's been an afterthought. And so they've had like the IT junior go, I can network this for you, plug all these systems into a router or a switch, and then it's a flat network, and your cameras are on the same network as your chillers, as your lifts, and your building is completely vulnerable. So yeah, that's the worst we've ever seen. But certainly by adding our system, we can then go through and protect all those systems by putting them on their own VLAN, put a security analysis tool on there. So yeah, it's far more improved.